Hey everyone. So, in this playlist, we're going to dive into a topic that I hope will save you money, give you more control over your tech, and really let you be part of a giving, vibrant, and very globally distributed community. I am talking about FOSS, FOSS, or free and open source software, a lot of which you can run on your own devices. So, if you're new to this subject, need a refresher, or if you're just getting started with freeing yourself from the tyranny of subscriptions and big tech, this session is definitely going to be for you. So back in the early days, way back when, in the 60s and 70s, software wasn't really a product per se. It was just kind of bundled with the hardware, right? It was the stuff that was needed to make the hardware work. But the real money was in the machines themselves until everybody had one. The software was just kind of there. The landscape shifted very quickly because we got very good at giving the hardware, and companies realized that there's just really big money in proprietary software. So they started to lock their code away because they realized, hey, if we do this and it's exclusive and we protect it, we can sell it for big bucks. So in other words, closed source became king rather than open source, right? Their source code was closed off. You couldn't get at it. So inevitably, a lot of people were very unhappy with that change because software and hardware should always enable us, not be locked away. And the 80s and the 90s saw a real backlash to this closed source community. So all sorts of things happen there. Projects that you may have heard of, like GNU and more likely Linux, were created way back in the day. And this is really to give power back to people, for want of a better phrase. And in fact, there's a book called The Cathedral and the Bazaar, which heavily influenced Netscape to ditch their closed source model and actually turn their code into what you now know as Firefox and Thunderbird, the email client. So there was this real sort of upheaval and change. And in the midst of this, in around the mid-80s, the Free Software Foundation was created, still going now. And they defined what free software really means. And by free, we're not talking about financially free. We're talking more along the lines of freedom. So they said, look, you should have freedom to run the program that you've got for any purpose you choose. You should have freedom to be able to study and modify the code, right? To be able to see it and see what it does. That seems like a fairly basic freedom that we should have. But also freedom to redistribute copies and freedom to distribute modified versions of that, right? So I might get a piece of paper today, I can draw on it, so I'm modifying it, changing it, and I can give it to a friend. Nobody would blink an eye. Do that with software, and suddenly it's a problem. And they say, well, no, this is how the world should work, and we want to be, giving. This is for people. So, the philosophy was very simple, but quite revolutionary for its time, which was, hey, software should be free, as in freedom. So, in the late 90s, roughly, I think it was around 1998, that movement inspired sort of the next wave of people and group of people to come together and said, hey, we really need to make this work for individuals and for business, and in a way that is going to set a really good platform for us moving forwards over the next 20 years of innovation. Because this was at a time, don't forget, that the internet was just about to start going through its real boom. And so the open source initiative was created, and it established a bunch of guidelines to ensure that software really remained free, accessible, in the spirit of free, but also while being business friendly. So, for example, all the normal things, you should be able to look at the source code of it, you should be able to change it, do things with it, do whatever else. It shouldn't discriminate against people, but it should also come with a license, but that license shouldn't be specific to the product. A whole bunch of other things. But it really built on the work that was done earlier. And so when we talk about FOSS, free and open source, that's sort of the history of where free and open source came from. It's very much like, no, we don't want this to be locked away. We don't want this to be a thing that people can't get access to. We think people should have access to this incredible thing because software as tools and hardware and other technology, right? It enables us to do better. It enables us to do more. So why would we keep that away from each other, right? It makes no sense. And so the internet, as you know it today, really, really was built on this huge wave of open source software that came out from the late 90s to the early 2000s. And still most of the internet today is powered by open source software. And that's important, right? In a world where security is so critical, being able to see how the things work under the hood, pretty vital. If that's all closed, that's pretty nefarious. So a lot of this is open. You can go and look at it. I won't go through all of that today. So that sort of brings us up to maybe 2005, 2006. And then there's been another shift, right? In the last 20 to 30 years, as we've all got computers, we've all got phones, we've all got the internet, all of a sudden we all have apps. And all right, we've gone through that 2000s hardware shift. We've all got the hardware. Now, surprise, surprise, all the software is really expensive. So these are cycles that we go through all the time. But the good news is the last 5 years, just a huge number of people, literally tens of thousands, if not millions, have been contributing to free and open source software that is producing the platform of all the tools that we are used to using. So the chances are, if you're using a tool in your personal life, an operating system, a piece of office software, what else? Digital tools to help you produce media, video editing, software editing, pictures, anything that you're doing with your home computer at the moment, chances are that there is a really, really good free and open source version that you could use instead. So for me, the reason that I love FOSS is twofold. One, I think it distributes the power, security, everything else among a much greater group of people, right? We're not so dependent on just one company making the thing and then hauling us over the coals for whatever they want to charge because they have a responsibility to their shareholders. So it has a lot of advantages, and it's kind of fun, and you can figure things out with it. It does come with caveats because it's all open and it's not as subject to some of the things that you might expect a big brand to do. Security can be a lot better because everyone can see it and point out all the mistakes. It can also be a lot worse. So always exercise caution when going for open source software. Just make sure you know what you're getting before you start using it. Also, projects can really go one of two ways, particularly early projects. Some of them can have this amazing upswell of activity and be built faster than any company would be able to build things, right? They really get this impetus behind them. But equally, because there's often no formal structure holding all these people together, they can disappear as well. So often if you're using really early stage software, just be aware that it might not be there tomorrow. But ideally, if you can add or contribute a line of code or two or some documentation, you contributing will make it more likely that it's going to be there tomorrow. And then the only other bit, setup might require a little bit more technical know-how or might not be as user-friendly as you used to. They're usually very early problems, and I don't want that to scare you, because in this series of videos, what I'm going to do is explore just a whole ecosystem of FOSS software that you can use today. I'll walk you through how to build your own free and open source ecosystem. And we'll cover everything from, I'm looking at my list here, operating systems, office suites, social media platforms that you can host yourself, communication and collaboration tools, note-taking, arts, media generation, and honestly, even the latest in artificial intelligence, right? The free and open source community is phenomenal. So I'd encourage all of you to start with free and open source if you can. And only go to paid if it's absolutely critical and you really can't find what you need. And then maybe contribute to that as well. So I'll also be sharing how you can find FOSS software. By the end of this series, you should be a FOSS master. And if you're excited about this freedom, you can tell that I am. It's something I'm very passionate about. subscribe to the channel, join me on the journey. And if you are somebody who already uses some free and open source software, why not just drop a comment below with what you are already using? So yeah, I'm looking forward to this playlist. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am going to discover a heap more tools along the way, thanks to your comments. And yeah, this will just help us to centralize our lives and the lives of others that little bit further.